Today, we're diving into a story about a sacred city, a brutal act of revenge, and a moment of mercy that would echo through history. We're looking at the story of the Sultan Saladin and his quest to reclaim Jerusalem, all based on our source material. So, picture this. A Muslim caravan is making its way toward Mecca when it's ambushed in Palestine. Everything is taken, the people are tortured, and in a fateful twist, one of the captives is the sister of the most powerful man in the entire Muslim world. Now, the man behind this attack, a crusader lord named Reynold of Chatillon, probably had no idea what he'd just done. He just lit a fuse on a powder keg that was about to explode. So how did this one single brutal attack lead to an all-out war for Jerusalem? Well, let's get into it.
But first, to really get why this was the final straw, we need to rewind a bit. You see, the context for all of this is the long and often very bloody history of Jerusalem itself.
You know, you could say Jerusalem's fate has always swung like a pendulum. Way back in 637, you have the Caliph Umar taking the city totally peacefully. Fast forward over 400 years to 1099, and the First Crusade arrives. Their conquest, it was anything but peaceful. And that violent memory is exactly what sets the stage for our story in 1187, the year Saladin decides to take it back. And this right here is why that history matters so much. Just look at the difference. On the left, Caliph Omar's entry into the city, a peaceful handover, no one gets hurt. But on the right, the Crusaders' victory, a horrific siege, a massive slaughter. The sources say the streets literally ran with blood. And that trauma, that memory, would haunt the city for almost 100 years.
And it's that memory that fuels the man at the center of our story. In this world of conflict and chaos, a new leader rises, one forged in the fires of war and politics, Saladin. But Saladin didn't just appear out of thin air. His path was really paved by his mentor, a man named Nur-ad-Din Zengi. Nur-ad-Din was this widely respected ruler with a huge ambition to unite all the bickering Muslim states into one, and with that power, retake Jerusalem. That dream basically became Saladin's life's mission. And his rise to power was, well, incredibly fast. He was trained by his warrior uncle, made a name for himself in Egypt, and became its governor when he was just 32. After his mentor Nur-ad-Din died, Saladin stepped up and united the lands. He even survived an assassination attempt by the legendary Hashishin, which only added to his reputation as a leader who was not only skilled, but maybe even divinely protected.
So now the pieces are in place. The Muslim world is largely united behind him. Saladin is ready. And that attack on the caravan by Reynold of Chatillon, that was the exact spark he needed. The time for waiting was officially over. When Saladin heard that Reynold had not only captured his sister, but had also insulted the Prophet Muhammad while doing it, his reaction was immediate. He made a solemn vow. He would kill Reynold with his own two hands. For Saladin, this wasn't just politics anymore, it was personal. And his response was just a masterclass in military strategy. At the Battle of Hattin, he didn't just fight the Crusader army, he laid a brilliant trap. First, he tricked them into marching deep into the desert in the absolute worst heat of July. Next, he cut them off from their only water source. And only then, once the entire army was exhausted, dehydrated, and demoralized, did he surround them and attack. It was an absolute wipeout. So after the battle, you get this incredibly dramatic scene. The captured Crusader king and Reynold are brought into Saladin's tent. As a gesture of hospitality, Saladin offers the parched king a cup of iced water. The king drinks and then goes to pass the cup to Reynold. But Saladin stops him right there. He makes it clear. The water is for the king, his guest, but not for Reynold. After reminding Reynold of all his crimes, Saladin pulls out his sword and keeps his promise. He then turns to the terrified king and says, "A king does not kill a king. One man got justice, the other was shown royal mercy." With the main Crusader army totally destroyed at Hattin, the road to Jerusalem was wide open. But this, right here, was Saladin's biggest test. Would he unleash the same kind of slaughter that the city had seen 90 years before, or would he choose a different path? You have to imagine what the people inside Jerusalem were thinking. They all knew the stories passed down from their grandparents about when the Crusaders took the city. Historical accounts estimate up to 100,000 men, women, and children, Muslims and Jews, were killed. They were bracing for a massacre. But the massacre never happened. When Saladin's forces finally took Jerusalem, the number of civilians killed was
Zero.
Instead of slaughter, Saladin offered terms of surrender that were just stunning to everyone on both sides. There would be absolutely no massacres, no looting. Christians who wanted to leave could do so safely if they paid a small ransom. Then he went even further, exempting the poor, the old, and women. And then, and this is amazing, he used his own personal treasury to pay the ransom for thousands who couldn't afford it themselves.
This single act of mercy, in a very merciless time, is what came to define Saladin's conquest. It cemented a legacy that has fascinated people for centuries.
And the long-term impact of his victory was just massive. The Crusader kingdom of Jerusalem had lasted for 88 years. After Saladin's reconquest, the city would remain under Muslim rule for the next 730 years, all the way up until the end of World War I.
And Saladin's story didn't stop there. He later defended Jerusalem from the Third Crusade, earning the genuine respect of his most famous rival, Richard the Lionheart. When Saladin died, he was almost penniless. He'd given all his wealth away to charity. He's remembered not just as a conqueror, but as a unifier, a leader known for his chivalry and his sense of justice.
So, our source material leaves us reflecting on this really powerful pattern from history. After Jerusalem fell to the Crusaders, it took almost 90 years for a leader like Saladin to emerge and reclaim it. And this leaves us with one final, very provocative question: will history repeat itself?